that prompted outGRID, an international cooperative effort?
The medical need is represented by the development of disease markers. In Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases, disease markers are urgently needed for early diagnosis, prognosis, and drug development in clinical trials.
Why are electronic infrastructures required to develop disease markers in Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases?
In the old times, we used it to appreciate disease markers on pathology by studying small bits of the brain under the microscope. Now we have learned that the very same markers can be appreciated on magnetic resonance imaging or positron emission tomography or other modalities. Disease markers can be extracted out of huge, very large data sets with the use of algorithms, and that requires huge computational power and other specific facilities.
To what extent is the European Commission involved in this effort?
The European Commission has funded a number of projects, starting from the year 2006 with the European Neuro Imaging repository, and in later years it's funded neuGRID, DECIDE, and more recently N4U or neuGRID for You.
What has been developed in Europe so far?
In Europe we've developed neuGRID, an electronic infrastructure based on grid computing with 5 nodes in Sweden, the Netherlands, France, Switzerland, and Italy, where neuroscientists from all over the world can access a web portal through which they have access to data, algorithms, toolkit, and pipelines.
Has neuGRID been tested in the field?
neuGRID has been tested in the field by extracting the cortical thickness of about 6,500 ADNI scans, and this has taken about 2 weeks' time versus about 5 years that would have taken on an ordinary computer.
What has been developed in the US to foster the development of disease markers for Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases?
Perhaps one of the most important things that we've developed has to do with ADNI, the Alzheimer's Disease Neuro Imaging Initiative. We run the informatics core that's part of ADNI, and as such we collect, organize, describe, and disseminate hundreds and hundreds of data points about patients that have this disease or patients that have mild cognitive impairment, as well as normal controls. We've developed all the informatics that are associated with this project, and it is perhaps one of the most well-known and well-appreciated global projects that describe Alzheimer's disease. In addition to that, we've developed the Image and Data Archive, the purpose of which is to organize these data and present it in a comprehensive way to people that are downloading this information. In addition, we've developed the LONI pipeline, which couples with the IDA to enable processing of these data to the point where population atlases or correlations among different data points can be computed, visualized, and statistically measured.
What has been developed in Canada to foster disease markers development?
In Canada, we've built the CBRAIN interface, which allows us to bind together supercomputing systems across the country, as well as the brain imaging centers across the country, in the service of brain imaging research of neurodegenerative diseases. When we do this, we're collecting large amounts of data from the various centers and subjecting that to high-performance processing with the supercomputer environment and sharing those data with our colleagues in Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world. It's a very exciting time for us because 10 years ago it wasn't possible to conceive of such large projects, and now we're on the verge of being able to build an international network of neurodegenerative imaging research centers.
What is outGRID trying to achieve, technically speaking?
outGRID aims to promote and develop interoperability between the 3 neuroscientific initiatives ultimately turning them into one unique and worldwide facility at the service of researchers.
What do you mean by interoperability?
Interoperability refers to the ability of disparate systems to work together, to interoperate. In outGRID, interoperability spans from the very bottom, network communications, to the more complex security architectures and information systems controlling the underlying computing resources. Beyond computer sciences, interoperability also encompasses a human, cultural factor in the way similar requirements have been addressed by different groups in different places. outGRID is therefore dealing with all these aspects to devise and implement an interoperability strategy and roadmap.
What is the present status of outGRID?
Over the last 2 years, outGRID has been developing the interoperability between neuGRID, CBRAIN and LONI, interconnecting their key infrastructural services, ultimately turning these three continental facilities into one unique and global tool, offering accumulated portfolio of both applications and data paired with unlimited computing capacities.
What are the future plans for outGRID?
outGRID is now looking to validate its interoperable architecture by running the largest ever data challenge of the field. Thanks to these interconnected infrastructures, outGRID will analyze 11,000 MR scans of patient brains involving the simultaneous cooperation of the three initiatives, therefore turning down the total execution time to 2 weeks instead of 12 years on a single computer.
What does your international working group want to ultimately achieve?
Our working group wants to develop a unique infrastructure out of the three that we have in Europe, US, and Canada by making these interoperable into a large global infrastructure where other stakeholders, other international communities may take part from China, India, Brazil, Japan, or elsewhere. The ultimate goal is to develop a virtual imaging laboratory where neuroscientists can access data, algorithm, computational resources, help, and training by simply connecting through the internet and via a web browser.
What will be the benefit for patients?
The infrastructure that we're building will allow to ultimately foster the development of biomarkers for Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases that will be used in clinical trials and will dramatically accelerate the development of drugs that will slow down or altogether arrest the progression of these dreadful diseases.